Hello. If you've got water in your knees and you're trying to get that out, you've come to the right place. Hello, I'm Dr. Ling with Empowerment Physical Therapy, and today we're going to teach you how to get the water out of your knee. To give you some context of where we were having a conversation with one of our past patients who had came in with her knee problem. And she had injured, sort of bumped and bruised her knee while helping one of her friend moved, and that what swollen caused the swelling in her ankle. And then thereafter, she went to see her doctor, and her doctor did two things. The doctor took the water out of her knee with a syringe, which helped reduce the amount of water that was in there. The second thing that the doctor gave her was a knee brace, which she thought was a little more excessive because her walking pattern changed the moment she put on that brace. She felt like she was lugging around a brace that was unnecessary, and it hindered her to kind of bend her knee when she had that brace on. So it made it really uncomfortable for her to walk. And she wasn't having pain walking on even surfaces. So it wasn't necessary for her to have the brace on while she was walking. So what we've decided between her and I was that she let go of the brace. And what do you know? 2 or 3 days afterward, that helped. It actually helped by not overprotecting and giving her something that she didn't really need, because that brace added on that extra weight that she didn't need it in the first place. It's kind of like logging around with 1 or 2 pounds in your leg and not being able to bend your knee at the same time. So you can imagine how uncomfortable it is for her for that walking. So what we kind of did for her was we implemented the police protocol. P is to protect. So we needed to make sure that she doesn't bump into further things, that she doesn't do further damage into it. So really, we kind of brought her awareness of just being more careful to make sure that she doesn't bump into things when she's walking and doing about her day. The other thing was to optimally load it to make sure that she strengthened that leg after she sort of resets and stretches out. So optimally loading is going to allow her to build strength in the hips and in the leg, in the lower leg, which will ultimately take pressure off the knee. The second thing we needed to have her do was to make sure she had adequate rest, and that resting is very subjective. So what we mean by that is to make sure she's got adequate rest, that she doesn't sort of do too much to flare up, but enough to make a change. So that is something that she kind of has to find a sweet spot when she's resting, because you don't want to sit for too long. Because if you sit for too long, what will happen is water will accumulate and sit there. At the same time, you don't want to do too much where it's going to flare up the knee and it'll cause inflammation, which in return will create water inside the knee. The second thing we needed to have her do was to ice it, compress, and elevate. And what we have in a clinic is a cold compression knee brace. So what we do after the session is to put the cold compression knee brace on her, elevate above your heart. Anytime you're trying to get water out of the knee, you want to make sure your knee is elevated, above the heart, so that gravity can help drain the fluid out of the knee. If you think about it, the moment you stand up, where does gravity take you? It goes down. It goes down. And guess what happens? That water stays in the knee. It gets kind of passively pull down. And the reason why that water sits in your knee and that your knee gets swollen is because your muscles aren't sufficient enough to pump the fluid out of the joint. That's why the longer you stay standing, walking, the more swollen your knee is going to be. But at the same time, when you're walking, it's also helping to pump the fluid out of your knee every time you walk. That's why being active and resting is sort of a very sweet and gray area that you have to be aware of, is to do enough to make a change, but not too much to flare things up. So following the police protocol, another thing that we did for her that helped to get the water out of her knee was to have her get a compression sleeve in her knee. We suggest a compression sleeve because it's a very dynamic sleeve that does two great things. One, when she's out and about, it helps. It acts like a muscle that's going to pump that fluid out of that knee for her. Two, so that will help keep the swelling down, prevent from further swelling in the knee when she's out and about. Two, it provides stability. It kind of really what a compression sleeve does at the end of the day is to hug the knee. And what it does is it provides stability. It provides that stability when you have that compression sleeve. Make sure you get the right size. Every compression sleeve comes with a measurement, so make sure you get the right size for that. One of the things we tell patients about compression sleeves is you don't want it too tight where your toes feels like numb and cold. And one of the ways we test it is if a compression sleeve is too tight is to press your toenail. It should go from white to pink within 3 seconds. Within 3 seconds, from white to pink. That's when you know that your knee sleeve isn't too tight. So after implementing our protocol, in addition to the knee sleeve, that significantly helped get the water out of her knee. So that is how you get water out of your knee. The second part of that, now that we kind of help reset it, the second part is to reload. And what we mean by reload is the strengthening. Make sure you start implementing strengthening stuff so you can strengthen the muscles around the knee. Ultimately, there isn't any muscle in the knee per se. There's a lot more ligament in the knee that kind of holds it together. Most of it's tendon. Most of the muscles comes from the hip and the leg. So that's what you got to strengthen. You got to strengthen your ankle, you got to strengthen your hips and your core as well, so that you can strengthen the knee as well, ultimately. So that is how you get rid of the knee and how to get the knee stronger. If you have any questions or concerns and need some guidance about this, feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, enjoy and stay well.